Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Noxcast, your Equinox News Recap podcast. I'm Nathan Hope. I'm the managing executive editor of the Equinox.
And I'm Chloe Erno, the news editor.
And we have a couple announcemements before we get into the recap proper here. First of which is some exciting news about a collaboration with another student org, WKNH, the student-run radio station here on campus. Starting on Mondays at noon, we're going to be broadcasting our news recap right onto the airwaves with 91.3 FM WKNH. So we're just going to send them over the audio file, and then it'll play as slated at that time every week, barring any complications if we ever have to record weirdly late or anything. But we should be good to go. So that's exciting news. If you want to tune in over there, support some student radio, that's great. And to those who might be new listening on WKNH, thank you for tuning in. Just another way to sort of get our message out there and sort of bring the news right to you wherever you are. So thank you to WKNH for giving us this opportunity. I also wanted to touch on some upcoming elections here on campus. Student assembly positions are going to be voted on. There's several vacancies. We're filming this on Thursday, so petitions close tonight, but if you missed it, they're still going to be voting next week on Wednesday, September 17th, the whole day, and then the results will be announced the following day, September 18th. So be sure to vote in those elections. It's very important to fill those positions. Student Assembly has complete domain over allocating student org budget funds is the main responsibility, but also being advocates for students at all different levels when it comes to campus policy issues, some state government things impacting higher ed. And, if you've been a listener of this show for long enough, you know that we do stories all the time talking about all the problems in higher ed now and stuff like that. So, representation starts from the bottom up is what I would say, and make your voice heard, and be sure to vote when the time comes on, again, Wednesday, September 17th. With that, I think we can get straight into the recap here. Our top story in news was Keeping Community at Keene State, which is a piece profiling the new advisor for KSC Pride, Dr. Mel Adams, and then the person who fills Ian Kaplan's old position, which is Director of Community and Belonging, Nina Zenkowitz, who previously worked in the office, both as a student and as an alumni. Really good piece here from one of our new staffers, Sam Menard, sort of just getting the perspective of trying to continue advocating for marginalized communities here on campus, despite some attacks from the state when it comes to programs deemed to be DEI programs. There's currently a lawsuit statewide trying to block the amendment from the budget that was what spurred all of these changes, the change of the name of the office and some of the, ensuing turnover. There's a lot of fears surrounding sort of how we can keep these programming things going despite that. So obviously the first avenue is going to be the legal system. So stay tuned for any new news that we get about that. But yeah, in the meantime, there are a couple people on campus who are sort of stepping up to the plate and willing to take on these positions despite the political turmoil. And it's just a nice, interesting piece talking about why it's important to have these things on campus. Chloe, I don't know what you wanted to add about this.
Yeah, I think it's really great that they're stepping into these roles. I saw Ian Kaplan's farewell email over the summer, and it was a very sad thing to see him go. And I know he helped a lot of people while he was here. But I think it's great that Mel Adams and Nina are stepping into these positions because they are really needed on campus, especially for the coordinator of community and belonging. That's a very important spot here. And with everything happening with DEI and the lawsuit, I think it's just important to advocate for that stuff openly and to protect those people who need it right now. So I think it's great that they're here with us.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because we did also have somewhat of just friendly working relationship with Ian Kaplan when he was here, and he's gonna continue to do great things, I'm sure. But it is just hard to see someone who's such a strong aspect of campus leave during sort of all this turmoil about DEI. But as of right now, it looks like some of the key programming things that we're seeing last year, such as the craft afternoons and the watercolor Wednesdays and those sort of regular activities, are gonna still be put on by the office. So that's nice to see. And hopefully it'll bring some sort of stability and continuation of that programming so that those students can feel supported in that. It's definitely really important work. But moving into region and state, our top story is from Olivia Richardson at NHPR. This is about New Hampshire medical providers sort of seeking guidance from other sources given some uncertainty in the federal government level. Sort of a lot of stories that we've been going over recently and last year, sort of about just the upheaval in the federal government and what that means more locally. You have an instance of that now where used to be able to get regular updates and communication with the CDC at the federal level about disease spread and things like that in terms of, what states should look out for. That's kind of been put on a pause. They talk about how there hasn't been regular communication since like March is when they stopped really keeping up with that precedent. So that's going to hit home for New Hampshire, several other states. But there also is sort of a wrinkle with this story about how the rest of the New England states and I believe New York and New Jersey as well, or just the northeastern states, are sort of making an alliance to provide their own vaccine guidance because of the lack of proper guidance at the federal level. Now we're seeing states sort of band together and make their own recommendations, but New Hampshire is actually not part of that group. So there's sort of this, dichotomy, I guess, between what New Hampshire is doing and then what other states are doing. Given the uncertainty at the federal level, it's going to become more and more important what's happening at the state level. I don't know. What would you like to add about this?
And I think we're definitely seeing like these kind of health concerns all across the country. And I think people are very much questioning the health system, both in good ways and bad ways. I mean, we've seen it in Florida where people aren't regulated to get vaccines anymore. And as I've talked about it in some of my classes for honors, we're gonna see diseases come back if we don't get vaccinated and we don't keep our health guidelines up to date. And it's just risking people's health to not take those kinds of precautions. So I think it's definitely important.
Yeah, we're gonna just continue to keep track and keep an eye on what's going on. Especially if you're coming from you're an out-of-state student, things that happen in New Hampshire still greatly impact you, while you're on campus and while you're sort of living in New Hampshire for most of the year. So definitely something to look at. And then in student life, sort of jumping in there, we had a piece from our student life editor, Justin, about the involvement fair, which happened this past Friday. It was really, from our perspective at the Equinox, it was really big turnout. We had our table set up like usual with our newspapers spread out and a sign-up sheet for folks to sign up if they're interested in producing any media for us. And we got around 23 signups, so that's nothing to sneeze at. And just it seemed like a very good turnout overall for just all the clubs. There's a lot of nice energy coming from this new crop of first years, which is great to see. Yeah, it was a good time from my perspective as just someone who's just trying to represent my organization, but some good coverage as well, and sort of getting an idea of what the clubs are looking to do this year in terms of giving their pitch to students and how the students are feeling.
Yeah, definitely. And I was very surprised and happy to see how many names we had on the paper. It was a great turnout for us this year. And we definitely saw the change in the meeting after that, where we had a much larger turnout with everyone who showed up. And so, yeah, I think the involvement fair was great, not for us specifically, but for all the clubs to get people involved. And I think it definitely did its purpose well this year with how many people turned up.
Right, yeah. And if you didn't see us at the involvement fair and you still want to get involved, it's never too late. Mondays, 9 p.m., Student Center 309. We're always welcoming new staff in any different area, and thank you to everyone who signed up and everybody who came to our meeting following the involvement fair. It means a lot, really. We can't do what we do without our staff. So thanks so much to everybody who helped put on the fair and came out to support us and all these different clubs. Moving into the editorial, this is a piece that was sort of loosely based on a story in news from our staffer Xander about how there's low water levels around campus, which is somewhat concerning given the implication of climate change sort of being seen more locally here. Those low water levels are something that you're starting to see those shopping carts that people put in those streams sort of being unearthed a little bit. You can see them now like you didn't before. So our editorial is sort of talking about what can Keene State do and sort of what can't they do in terms of the position they're in with environmental actions. I think a couple of things that we hit on in particular involved the old program Recycling on Campus Keene State, or ROCKS, which there's a couple of vans that say ROCKS on them that are typically parked in the Redfern parking lot. They used to be a group that would sort of just have a bunch of student workers and volunteers who would go around campus and assist with recycling and make sure that things go where they're supposed to go. And that sort of stopped existing, I believe, around during the pandemic. We still have EcoReps, which is an environmental advocacy group here on campus, but it sort of serves a different purpose than ROCKS. So we talked about that. And we talked about the Green Bikes program, which is somewhat still a thing on campus, but there used to be someone whose sole job was dedicated to managing the Green Bikes program, which is, of course, lending out bikes for people to borrow to get around quicker around campus. So yeah, what can Keene State do given we're fully aware of the challenges that come with the state legislator not being the most pro environmentalism, to say the least. It's always a constant battle, and lots of great measures that could happen require lots of funding or lots of initial investment. But we're sort of just talking about what can be done. I mean, it's hard to see some of the things hit closer, like the low water levels.
And I think going back to Xander's article, there was a quote from Joe Britton, our groundskeeper, about how this is one of the driest years he's ever seen. And to hear that to come from him is just crazy to me. We're definitely seeing changes with the environment, with our climate. And I think it's very important to touch upon how we as a campus can help combat that. And when it comes to trash and the recycling, there's so many ways that students can help. Just recycling your old school supplies would make a big difference. And there's so many of us on campus, and I think it's important to advocate that we actually take care of our campus and, by extension, the greater area we're in and the wildlife here.
Definitely. I mean, Keene State's one of the more rural campuses that you see across the region. There's just wildlife plays such a big role. We've done a few articles on that in the past, and sort of the green areas and things like that. So it's definitely something that you see kind of quicker than some of the more urban campuses. But yeah, it's a good article from Xander, and we just wanted to touch on that in our editorial to talk about, is there anything that can be done? What should be done? What is sort of realistic? So go check it out. Moving into arts and entertainment, we had some good coverage from Administrative Executive Editor Tim of the Stagnox and Blowflies concert at Nova Arts, which is a concert space housed within the Brewbaker's Cafe on Emerald Street. Tim really pulled through with this one. Sort of, it was a whole situation where he took it last minute, but he did a really good job and talked to band members from both bands and as well as attendees. These are two student bands as well, so that's a big aspect of sort of covering something that's off campus, not far off campus, but it is. But still has big, connection to Keene State, and some great photos as well from our staffer, Kate. So thank you for that. But yeah, just all around cool. I always love show coverage. We did some slightly fun things with the layout as well, but a lot of the photos are great to see. Do the lighting, some like purple and red there. Really kind of captures the vibe of the show. I was there just in my personal capacity to come out and support because I know some of the folks from Blowflies, but it was a great show, and I always love to see coverage like this.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think having these fun activities in Keene really helps bring the students out of their shells, especially in these first couple of weeks for the semester. And then we have Tim, who pulled through amazingly last minute. which was so great. And the article itself turned out amazing as well, despite the challenges. But yeah, I think it's great. I think the coverage was great, and I think the event was great.
Yeah, I mean, what else can you really say? Just shout out to Tim really on that one. But now we're going to close it off here talking about the sports top story, which was sort of asking students' thoughts going into the Patriots season this year. Football, despite it not being a sport at Keene State, is still a very big sport, and there's a lot of fans here on campus who love the Patriots. And I'm assuming some of you who might hate them due to being out of state, but a lot of fans of the Patriots here. And so one of our new staffers, Serena, did some coverage talking to them about how they're feeling about the team going into the season. There's a lot of somewhat cautious optimism going into the year, I would say, about the changing in coaching and the quarterback there. But obviously, these interviews were conducted before the opener, so it's a little bit trying to square that with the fact that they did end up losing, I believe, 20-13 against the Raiders. So kind of unfortunate there, but there's a lot of games in the season. I'm not personally like huge into football. I don't really watch it regularly outside of the Super Bowl, but I do, have to acknowledge that that is a big part of, just living in New England. We have such a strong sports teams across all the leagues. So I hope, things will turn up for them and fans on campus and otherwise can enjoy the rest of the season.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I don't have much of a stake in the matter whether the Patriots win or not, but I think it's really great the way that sports and by extension football kind of bring the Keene community together and by extension New England together. And we see that on campus all the time with sports here. But I think it was a good article, and I think that sports are very important to us, and I can respect that.
Yeah, it's a big vehicle in terms of like bringing people together, but also, depending on the circumstance, it can get pretty emotional for people, whether it be, anger or sadness. So I'm just hoping for the best overall. I don't know. I don't want to be one of those people that's like, I just hope everyone has fun, but I do kind of hope everyone has fun, I guess. But yeah, it's a good article and some pretty wild quotes, if I do say so myself. So you go check it out if you haven't yet. Pick up a paper or check it out online. But yeah, I think that just about does it for our recap this week. I just wanted to extend a special shout out, as always, to the composer of the music for Noxcast, our very own Equinox alum, Zach Keenan, the creator of the graphic for Noxcast, our very own art director, Elijah Fisher, and the editor of Noxcast for now, our webmaster, Charlotte King. Until next time, I've been Nathan.
And I'm Chloe.
Thanks for watching.